Welcome, everyone. Welcome. We're thrilled to have you here with us, those of us in the room and those of us participating via live stream for the 2022 Marianne Hartman Awards. I'm Jessica Miller, Associate Provost for Academic Affairs and Faculty Development at the University of Maine, and I am delighted to invite to help kick off the ceremony Joan Mundy, President of the University of Maine and our regional campus, the University of Maine at Machias, and Vice Chancellor for Research for the University of Maine system.
Thank you, Jessica, and good evening, everyone. Isn't it just wonderful to be back together all in the same place for a change? Excellent, excellent. Welcome to the Marianne Hartman Awards ceremony. Welcome to the University of Maine, and welcome to our many distinguished guests here, including Senator Angus King and Dr. Hartman's son, Eric Hartman. Senator King, I have not met Dr. Hartman, Mr. Hartman, but anyhow, welcome. Okay, great, thank you. I'd like to really welcome everybody who's joining us here today, both in person via the live stream, and I'm appreciative to be invited to be a part of this special evening. We'll open today's event with the University of Maine Land Acknowledgement. The University of Maine recognizes that it is located on Marsh Island in the homeland of the Penobscot Nation, where issues of water and territorial rights and encroachment upon sacred sites are ongoing. Penobscot homeland is connected to the other Wabanaki tribal nations, the Passamaquoddy, Maliseet, and Micmac, through kinship, alliances, and diplomacy. The university also recognizes that the Penobscot Nation and the other Wabanaki tribal nations are distinct, sovereign, legal, and political entities with their own powers of self-governance and self-determination. It's an honor to be together with people from across the university community, the state, and far beyond to recognize these distinguished people this evening. Sue Bell, Bonnie Jean Brooks, Zamzam Mohammed, and Tyler Dubois. Dr. Marianne Hartman, a former University of Maine assistant professor and director of forensics, is a fitting namesake for these awards. She joined the UMaine faculty in 1969 after completing her PhD at Bowling Green University and became a pioneer in the field of oral interpretation. And the last time we were together for this award, I actually took the time to locate a paper of Dr. Hartman's where she compared the conversational language of women and men born in Maine around 1900. The paper was absolutely fascinating for many reasons, but perhaps most importantly that it drew on an interdisciplinary UMaine course on women of Maine. The course involved a women's historian, a folklorist, and a language expert. It's a great paper. In the conclusions, Dr. Hartman notes, quote, "There is a traditional language of women. It is more evaluative, flowery, more polite, more tentative, more qualified." I can't help but wonder what the results of that study and even how that study might be framed today, conducted on people born in Maine more recently. This courageous teacher, scholar, advocate, friend, and mother died in 1980. So many of us here tonight never had the chance to meet her. But I do know that the individuals we are honoring today exemplify the spirit, the achievement, and zest for life that Dr. Hartman epitomized. Marianne Hartman Award grew out of the Equity Leadership Program, which was founded by Joanne Fritchie, who in 1973 became UMaine's first director of the Office of Equal Opportunity. She was a driving force to positively transform the UMaine campus and experience. She helped to found the Women's Studies program at UMaine and was the 1988 recipient of the Marianne Hartman Award. And I'm pleased to announce that Dr. Fritchie will soon receive an honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters at our May commencement here in the university. We're delighted that she'll be joining us. The Marianne Hartman Awards have been hosted by the Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies program since 1986. I note with sadness the passing of Anne Schoenberger earlier this year. Anne was the founder and longtime director of what is now the Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies program. Probably less well known to people than that is the fact that Anne mentored me early in my career. We had shared interests in topics around women and mathematics and spatial visualization and gender. And that was long, long before I had any idea that I would ever land here at the University of Maine. She was wonderful. I really applaud tonight's awardees for being powerful forces for positive change. It's been remarkable to read about them, and you'll hear more as the evening goes on. At UMaine today, women's status is strong. Women comprise 50% of the student body, including 40% of the students enrolled in the STEM fields and about 48% of faculty and administrators. We also know that in the larger society and at UMaine, much remains to be done. Research shows us that the COVID-19 pandemic has compounded challenges for women and racial and ethnic minority groups. The pandemic has deepened inequalities that exist, including with regard to health and economic security. And again, tonight's awardees exemplify the kind of action and accomplishment that makes a difference for the kinds of areas that we've just mentioned. University of Maine and our regional campus, the University of Maine at Machias, are defined by our commitment to making a difference and by a culture of caring. For example, UMaine Machias just recently developed a partnership with Eastport Healthcare that will be setting up weekly booster clinics on campus to serve the Machias area. We also are looking forward in the coming months to the dedication of the recently renamed Beryl Warner Williams Hall, honoring the first Black student to earn a bachelor's degree in mathematics at the university in 1935. Originally from Bangor, Williams went on to earn a master's degree in math from UMaine in 1940. She became the first woman to be appointed dean for the Center of Continuing Education in 1970 at Morgan State University, a historically Black public research university in Baltimore. After many years of moving toward our goal of becoming an R1, very high research activity university, we've made it. And that is due in no small measure to the work by folks like yourselves and so many colleagues here at the University of Maine over decades to build our research program, to build our capacity in that area. Thanks due also to our wonderful state legislators who over many years have supported us with the MEIF dollars, who've sustained key funding, to Governor Janet Mills, and to our congressional delegation, all of whom are a part of this great success story. Thank you. So it's a good night to celebrate for many reasons, most notably, of course, because we are here to honor these awardees. And on behalf of UMaine, the Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies program, and the Office of the Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost, from whom you will hear later, but you don't need to hear his title again, because that was funny. I thank and congratulate Sue Bell, Bonnie Jean Brooks, Zamzam Mohammed for their extraordinary leadership and their impact on the great state of Maine and beyond as winners of the Marianne Hartman Award. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Farini Mundy. I'm delighted next to welcome Maisie Huff to tell us a little bit about the history of the Marianne Hartman Awards. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Huff, she is Professor Emerita of History and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies, and for many years was one of the core pillars of the Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies program, and is a feminist researcher and local hero generally. So thanks, Maisie.
Thanks, Jessica, for that really nice introduction. I hope you can all hear me. It's absolutely wonderful to see so many people here at the end of our COVID era. Thank you for coming. I want to also thank the committee for inviting me to recognize Anne Schoenberger and the Marianne Hartman Awards, both of which have meant a great deal to me. I cannot come to these awards without thinking of Anne, who is the impresario here for over 25 years. Equally important, she and Marianne had much in common. Both were almost of the same era, but even more, both were strong women who observed the world through a gendered lens. They saw clearly the obstacles that women faced everywhere, and they believed that given a chance, women could do anything. Marianne's husband died young, leaving her with 4 young children. She obtained her degree, as you heard from the president, and came to the University of Maine in 1969. 11 years later, she died of breast cancer. But in that short time, she left a legacy. She was a pioneer in the field of oral interpretation and studied communication from a historical perspective. And as a historian, that means a lot to me. Being intrigued by the idea that there is a traditional language of women, there is also a traditional language used to talk about women, and that language reflects women's place in society. Marianne set about gathering interviews from women and men in Maine. She got help from Sandy Ives and from students in a class taught for 7 years entitled Women in Maine, an Autobiographical Approach. She used these interviews to study the language patterns of men and women and documented distinct differences. It is important to note, however, that while she looked at gender, she also paid attention to class, education, ethnicity, and age. In other words, she applied, or she paid attention to the what we now call intersectionality. She was before her time. From these interviews, she also developed a reader's theater to dramatize the resource potential of persons over 65 and disabled, and had elderly and disabled read in the performances that were performed around the state. These interviews, by the way, can all be accessed through Fogler Library. Marianne recognized that even as language placed women in society, so did the university. I'm sure you've heard of many obstacles that women have faced here on campus. I'll just name 3. Women could play basketball, but they could only dribble 3 times. And they were prohibited from using the weight room. Many of you will have read Joni Averill's piece in the BDM. She's a longtime reporter. She got her start writing about women's sports, and that was the first time that the sports were covered in the BDM. But only sometime after this was her advisor, or before, her advisor steered her away from journalism, saying it was no place for women. And finally, there were 2 women who were full professors on campus, 2 women, full professors. When a contingent approached the president with this information, his response was, "What's the matter with you gals?" I tried to find a pithy story of Marianne's activism at this time. There were many women pushing back at the university in a variety of very creative ways. But Nancy McKnight reminded me that it was Marianne's quiet support that was important. Encouraging young women, for example, to own the title of doctor that they had earned. Nancy wrote to me, "My and your generations may think we had a hard time claiming a place in academia, but I certainly was not a single mother with a dangerous medical condition to cope with while providing devoted care to my family." She was a role model, Nancy said, of a different kind. Providing a role model, allowing Maine women to see what was possible, was the reason that Nancy, Ann, and others decided to initiate these awards. They designed an awards logo, a shining star, and they made sure that the awards recognized women from Maine who represented a wide variety of achievements. They also wanted each year to recognize at least one woman with a local reputation. The first awards, held in 1986, were awarded to Berenice Abbott, May Sarden, and Bangor activist Kay Cutler. So thank you, Provost John Boylan and President Joan Farini Mundi, for ensuring that the award ceremonies will continue. While Anne and Marianne would both acknowledge that women have come a long way, they would also insist that we still have a long way to go. So thank you.
Now we're delighted to present Maine Renaissance to perform a specially chosen song for the occasion. I have to warn the folks in the front row over here that this is the mic, it will pick up voices, so we need to be extra quiet.
Would you like us right here? Sure. Okay. We're so happy to be singing for you tonight, and congratulations to all the honors. Cold is the water, and freezes your already cold mind, already cold mind. And death is at your doorstep, and it will steal your innocence, but it will not steal your substance. And you are not alone in this, and you are not alone in this. As sisters, we will stand and will hold your hand. Hold your hand. And you are the mother of your baby child, the one to whom you gave life, and you have your choices, and these are what make man great, his ladder to the stars. And you are not alone in this, and you are not alone in this. As sisters, we will stand and will hold your hand. Hold your hand. But I will tell the night and whisper, lose yourself. But I can't move the mountains for you.
Thank you for that breathtaking performance. Sharon Barker is a dedicated advocate for women and girls in Maine and served as the founding director of the Women's Resource Center from 1991, retiring until her retirement in 2015. The Student Activism Award is intended to honor a current University of Maine student or student organization that exemplifies Sharon's passion and commitment to social change. The recipient of this award is selected each year by students in our WGS program, many of whom are here with us this evening. Tyler Dubois is a double major in social work and child development and family relations, who will graduate this year. Tyler was nominated for this award by two social work professors, Drs. Jennifer Crittenden and Robin Russell. Tyler's commitment to social justice is evident in their academic and research work. Tyler serves as an undergraduate fellow for a project that is investigating the barriers faced by community health workers in Maine. Community health workers in Maine are culturally diverse and often marginalized as they carry out an essential community function that is not typically valued by traditional healthcare systems. Tyler has brought essential advocacy skills to the research team. For example, they've been instrumental in identifying and addressing human rights and social and economic justice issues inherent in the researcher's project implementation, from flagging inaccessible language in public-facing research documents to helping team members identify characteristics of oppression and white supremacy within their own research protocols and procedures. A mother of 6, Tyler has been an advocate around the rights of pregnant and birthing people. Their protests against anti-breastfeeding laws have led to numerous interactions with law enforcement officers. Few of us would put our constitutional rights to the test as often or courageously as Tyler has. Recently, Tyler has become active with Maine People's Alliance, participating in lobbying for training on bills involving homelessness and affordable housing. Earlier this year, Tyler delivered testimony at a legislative hearing on fuller sovereignty for Maine's Indigenous tribes. Tyler was also instrumental in encouraging and supporting the Down East Rural Health Collaborative, a collection of UMaine researchers working in the Down East region to write and submit testimony for this legislation. Tyler is an exceptional human being, in the words of their professors, compassionate, brilliant, and a tireless warrior for social and economic justice. Tyler has faced and overcome many challenges: racism, poverty, multiple serious disabilities. Tyler upholds and lives a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. They lead by example, encouraging all of us to stand up for those who do not have a seat at the table. We are honored to recognize Tyler Dubois as the 2022 recipient of the Sharon Barker Activism Award. Tyler? And now we'll begin the presentation of the Marianne Hartman Award recipients. I'd like to begin by inviting Kay Rand to present to Sue Bell. Kay is a career public servant serving as Angus King's longtime chief of staff, also managing his gubernatorial and Senate campaigns, a native of Ashland, Maine. She is currently managing director of Bernstein Shore Government Solutions in Augusta. Kay.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and a thrill to be able to talk about my friend Sue Bell. I've known Susan since 1981, and I had to do the math. That's 41 years. And it's amazing how many times our careers have intersected professionally in the past 41 years, and how strong our friendship has become in that time. We're an extension of each other's family. I have to acknowledge you guys as family, the members of the Bell clan that are here, and you have to acknowledge me as family, David. So Susan was born in Aroostook County. She grew up in the grocery business, and she graduated from Little Patton Academy. I don't say that to provide biographical information because it really defines much of what Susan became. And I want to talk a little bit about her accomplishments, but I also want to talk about the characteristics that define Susan to me and that I think enabled her to accomplish as much as she did. And I have to start when Susan was a young science teacher in Oxford Hills High School. A tragedy struck the community when a group of seniors who drank excessively died in a car crash. So Susan and a colleague decided that they were going to begin Project Graduation. Project Graduation is an organized activity for graduating seniors that the community participates in that doesn't involve alcohol, but it's a treat for them to participate in. Think how many lives, Susan, that you've saved since Project Graduation was created, as if that wasn't legacy enough. She was a very effective state legislator. I know that. I was a baby lobbyist and had to interact with her. But Susan was the kind of legislator who was respected by people on both sides of the aisle. It was back in the day when Republicans and Democrats actually worked together to get things done. And Susan was at the center of a lot of problem solving when she was a legislator. And usually legislators are told as freshmen that they're to be seen and not heard. She missed that lesson. Within the second term, she landed herself a seat on the very powerful Appropriations Committee and made a significant difference there. Many of you may not know, but she was the first female state forester. In fact, you may be the only female. Oh, really? As director of the Forest Service in the Department of Conservation, where several conversations happened, I'm sure, but Susan was the first female. I think that's an important part of her legacy. And she also, interestingly, worked on exemplified public service in all three branches of state government. She was in the legislature. She served in the Department of Conservation in the McKernan administration as deputy commissioner and director of the Forest Service. And she finished her career in public service as director of clerks of court in the judicial branch. So I don't know of anybody else who served with the kind of style that Susan has served in all three branches of government. And then I want to talk a little bit about our service with Governor King. Susan was a member of a policy team, a member who I think was supposed to log in, and another member who's sitting next to Angus tonight. And Angus used to say, and I'll probably get this wrong, Senator, but he used to say that one of the most meaningful things you can do in life is to work hard on something important with people you like. And I can tell you that it's magic when that happens. We had Susan, David, Greg, and I liked each other. We respected each other. We liked our boss. And it's magic when a team forms like that. And Susan, as a member of that policy team, really was instrumental for assisting Angus achieve one of his legacy achievements with computers in the classroom, one-to-one technology. It was unheard of at the time. It seems so duh now. But it was unheard of at the time. And I remember it's a long story about how the governor made the announcement without any thinking about it or any planning. But Greg, David, and I were meeting with Susan, and we said, if he's going to get this done, somebody's got to take responsibility for it. And Susan drew the short straw. And there were many Friday nights when she was dragging herself into the Blaine House for yet another meeting. We were all thankful to her, but Angus wanted me to be sure to include in my remarks one night when Susan had put in probably a 14-hour day. She slinked into Angus's office, closed the door, fell into a chair and said, "No more big ideas." Ideas is patent vernacular for ideas. Those could go on talking about Susan's accomplishments, but I really want to talk about is what defines Sue Bell and what has led her to these accomplishments. And these are my words about Susan. I'm sure others would have different ones, but Susan's an encourager. You never leave Susan's presence without feeling better about yourself and your place in the world. Rarely have I ever left her presence without feeling better. She's disciplined. She's always prepared. And I have to amend that to say she's almost always prepared to be here half naked tonight if it wasn't for her cousin Martha. So usually she's prepared. We laugh now about the meetings that we had in the governor's office every Friday when the legislature was in session, and they were important meetings. They all started at 8. Susan was ready by 7:45 and would be waiting for the rest of us to get there. I'm a nick of time kind of girl, so I'd get there at 8. David, somewhere in between Susan and I. Our friend Greg, however, thought maybe 10-20 minutes late was on time, and this black cloud would be forming over Susan's head. We laugh about that now, but it wasn't so funny at the time. But Susan is very disciplined, always prepared. She's a problem solver. She jokingly laments projects that I still give to her for help with whether they're personal or professional, but Susan is a problem solver. She gets it done. You can always count on her to help you get it done. She's curious. She has an insatiable curiosity. I don't know how many conversations I've been ready to walk away from before Susan is ready to walk away from. She is genuinely curious about people and wants to hear their stories. We used to send her into a room, and David, I can tell you where I'm going with this. We used to send her into a room when Angus was governor early so that she could tell us who's in the room, who she talked to, who she ignore. And we used to call it pedigreeing. Susan could pedigree a room, and we would know if there was anybody from Aroostook County in the room, for sure, because that was a critical piece of information. And Susan and I ski a lot, and we often get in the singles line. So she's often in the chair in front of me, and inevitably she's talking to the people in the chair. She's curious. So she's an encourager. She's disciplined. She's a problem solver. She's curious. All of this exemplified her service, her public service, and her retirement, frankly. She hasn't stopped any of those characteristics. I've enjoyed learning about Marianne Hartman, what I've learned about her, and I'm assured that she is smiling and would applaud Susan's nomination for this award. Congratulations.
Most of that was true.
Thank you so much, Kay, and congratulations, Sue. Our next recipient is Bonnie Jean Brooks, and here to present her award is Marianne Saxel, a dedicated nonprofit organization leader with extensive experience in community development, grant writing, and fundraising. She currently works in human resources for Penquist CAP, a nonprofit organization dedicated to combating poverty in Maine. Marianne.
As the nominator of the next extraordinary woman being recognized this evening, it is both my pleasure and honor to introduce awardee Bonnie Jean Brooks. As a lifelong advocate for people with mental illness and intellectual and developmental disabilities, Bonnie Jean Brooks has supported the welfare and dignity of some of Maine's most vulnerable citizens. 43 years ago, After the 1979 Pineland Consent Decree, Maine began transitioning people with intellectual disabilities and mental illness out of large institutions, such as Pineland and BMHI, into community-based care homes. The state had 10 clients who had been in Pineland since they were children, but there was no community agency to serve these clients, in addition to other individuals being released into the community. As the founder of Opportunity Housing, Inc., commonly referred to by its acronym OHI, Bonnie was instrumental in creating and providing residential care for these individuals. The new nonprofit planned and then opened 2 6-person group homes for people who were then widely believed to be dangerous and incapable of being deinstitutionalized. The first residential home was on the grounds of Bangor Mental Health Institute, where I was living actually. My father was a superintendent. So I was living on the grounds of BMHI. It's now known as the Dorothea Dix Psychiatric Center. The hospital provided an apartment on the grounds. Bonnie lived with the clients she served, so she could see firsthand what traumas they were living through. A short time later, OHI moved off the grounds of BMHI into the community, into what has become one of the first group homes in Bangor. And you can think about how many group homes we have now in the state of Maine and how people are being served and how different it is. Today, OHI serves nearly 600 people with disabilities in their own homes or in one of OHI's 32 group homes. Over the past 4 decades, Bonnie has consulted for public and private agencies nationwide and in 4 other countries. She founded the Maine Association for Community Service Providers, was appointed to the Maine Department of Health and Human Services Federal Policy Impact Council, and served as a staff member and program consultant to the President's Committee for People with Intellectual Disabilities. Bonnie is endlessly inspired by the people she serves and is passionate in her conviction that all people can make a difference in their communities. She is pleased to be part of Maine and its exceptional community. Not one for sitting on her laurels in her retirement, she is now on the Stockton Springs Planning Board and continues to serve as a consultant to OHI and other organizations. Her contributions to Maine and one of its most vulnerable populations has been immeasurable. It is my honor to introduce you to Marianne Hartman Award recipient Bonnie Jean Brooks and the mother of my friend Holly Brooks.
Thank you, Marianne, and congratulations, Bonnie Jean. Our third recipient is Zamzam Mohammed, and her presenter is Kristen Poudier, currently serving her 2nd term in the Maine House as State Representative for District 60, a lifelong resident of Lewiston, Maine. She spent 2 decades at Bates College, where she now leads the Harvard Center for Community Partnerships as Assistant Director for Center Operations. Kristen?
So good evening, everyone, again, and thank you for joining us and recognizing all of tonight's amazing honorees. And happy April Fool's Day. Hopefully we'll get you out of here in enough time to play one last prank before the day's over. So tonight I have the very distinct pleasure of an honor, great honor, of speaking to you as one of the many fans of Zamzam Mohammed. who is truly one of the most amazing humans that this world has ever seen. I'm certain that many of you actually already know Sam or know of Sam. These days, it's pretty hard to find someone who hasn't heard of her selfless pursuits to help solve every problem related to peace and equity facing the great state of Maine. But in case you aren't familiar with her, here is some background, and I'll start with this story. Sam arrived in Lewiston as a refugee with 2 young children in early November of 2001, part of the first wave of Somali immigrants to the city. Not long after that, when her son was injured, she took him to the emergency room at Central Maine Medical Center, where the attending nurse asked her to help with translation for another Somali parent. Sam hesitated, knowing that medical terminology is a specialized language that she had no formal training in. But the hospital and her community needed her help, and so eventually she agreed. And the rest, they say, is history. You see, that is what Sam does. She helps, she comforts, she connects, she resources, she networks, and she supports. Sam is now a certified nursing assistant, has worked at both Central Maine Medical Center and Androscoggin Home Care and Hospice as a medical interpreter. She served on the Lewiston School Committee and has created an impressive track record of developing and nurturing relationships throughout the greater Lewiston-Auburn community and across the state, at City Hall and the State House, on the school committee, and with law enforcement, schools, and nonprofits. She is a natural, energetic, and creative builder of bridges. Sam has allies and supporters everywhere, and I mean literally everywhere. And when she asks, people do not hesitate in answering her call. Sam's work and commitment to community have been recognized in multiple ways over the years, through a YWCA of Central Maine Women of Achievement Award in 2021, the University of New England's Deborah Morton Award in 2019, and Empower the Immigrant Women's Trailblazer Honoree in 2018, and a profile in Downey's magazine entitled, "We Need More Mainers Like Sam Muhammad" in 2016. And indeed we do. Sam never stops, her dedication knows no bounds, and the impact of her work is significant. She is an inspiration to literally everyone that meets her. I'm so honored, my very dear friend, to have nominated you for this award and to be able to share this moment with you tonight.
Thank you and congratulations, Sam. We do want to hear the voices and the words of our recipients this evening. So we did ask them if they would join us on a panel and reflect a little bit on their experiences. So we're going to move to that moment now. We do need to do a little bit of reorganization, so just hang on a second. Testing. So this is a university, and we did warn them there would be a test. Now it's beginning. We have a few questions that we would be grateful for you all to reflect on. The first is, how does your identity or multiple intersecting identities influence you as an advocate, ally, or leader? Does your identity inform your work or the choices you've made? Who would like to take this one?
Hello, I'm Saxel Hartman. Thank you so much. For me, I think when I moved to Maine in 2001, we didn't have any Somali representative. As a woman, as a mother, as a Muslim woman, as a Black woman, I thought I should step up and help the community to understand where we're from and why I'm here. I didn't just pack my bag and come for vacation, even though it's land of vacation. But I think it impacts me every day and reminds me, and when I'm on the table, I have to remember that always. And hope that be a role model for our young girls and all my girls, my grandchildren. And it's constantly a reminder, as we can see, especially with everything that's going on. Coming from a country where I did not have a voice on the table as a woman, and coming to this great country to have a voice on the table. I am so blessed and very grateful of that, and I don't forget that every day. And I'm very proud to say I am very happy to be here. Thank you.
I think that one's identity informs who we are, the choices we make, and influences and informs how we do our work. I grew up in Aroostook County, picking potatoes, working in a family IGA grocery store. And what I learned was that working with other people collaboratively, you do a lot to make things better for people in your community. And you get pleasure and enjoyment out of really making a difference. My intellectual and social experiences at Maine also broadened my world. And it led me to look at opportunities as they present themselves that not only provide an avenue for me, but look for opportunities to help others in our state and in our communities. I chose professions that involve working with people and helping people get to a better place, whether it was in the classroom, whether it was legislating, involving people in the process, having a voice in decisions that had an impact on them and their families. What a wonderful place to grow up in Maine. One large community with challenges, certainly, but no one is smarter than all of us. And if we choose to participate, we really can make a difference, and it makes our world a better place.
Thank you very much. It's hard to top these two speakers. But I began to wonder who I really am. You know, as you get older, you realize that you've traveled a long path and you've been you had different identities along that path. I think that we're recognizing that more these days than we ever have before, that it's okay to change your identity if you want to. But from my childhood, growing up in Stockton Springs, Maine, not that far from here, down on Penobscot Bay, I was the oldest child of 4 children. I was the person who was often left to be with those children when my mother wasn't there and my father was very seldom there. So I learned to be a leader from a very young age. I have always identified myself as a strong Maine woman. And I've always believed that there's absolutely nothing that is impossible. And the organization that I've been the CEO of now for over 40 years, just recently retired, 42 years. Our motto there is everything is possible. Our nominator, Marianne, mentioned trying to deinstitutionalize people who had never been deinstitutionalized and were considered too dangerous to ever be deinstitutionalized. And in my interview, I said, everything is possible. And indeed, everything is possible. I have seen miracles happen. When I was 12 years old, I was asked to write my philosophy of life by an English teacher. And I found that philosophy of life just recently. And my mother had saved it. And my philosophy at 12 was the same one as it is today. And I really am the same person. I said, I am going to go to college, despite the fact nobody else in my family had ever been to college. And I am going to get an education and I'm going to come back and help Maine people. And I did. And along the way, it wasn't long before I ran into the civil rights movement. And so I identified very strongly with civil rights activism. And I got my first taste of it when I was at Boston University. And I loved the University of Maine, by the way. I was telling someone, I think maybe the provost, that when BU and the University of Maine women would play basketball, I would always root for Maine. But when I was in BU, I pledged a sorority and did not know. I brought in my 2 best friends. One was Jewish and one was Black. And I found out after the pledge party and the pledges, the BO went away, that our sorority didn't pledge Blacks or Jews. And that's really, I think, the beginning of my civil rights activism. And it took me to places where the senior people at Zeta Tau Alpha at a big sorority convention in Hot Springs, Arkansas, asked me to give back my sorority pin, and I wouldn't do it. And then it took me on years later to Watts in Los Angeles at during the 60s, the Watts riots, where I taught in inner city, South Central Los Angeles, and continued the civil rights movement. That's where I met lots of people with disabilities, and I continued this civil rights activism to this day and will for the days to come, when I began to support people with disabilities, which has been my lifelong passion. And supporting people with disabilities and the disability rights movement is the greatest civil rights movement in this country. It involves more people and it can't stop, unfortunately. So that's who I am. I'm a hard worker. I identify myself as a hard worker.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question. Describe the positive aspects of advocating for social justice and civic engagement. In other words, what are the rewards of a life devoted to public service?
Okay. I made this reference a little earlier. And I think there's a sense of accomplishment, knowing that you've made a measurable difference in the lives of others. Kay talked about project graduation. This was 1979, when we had many young people in car accidents. There were OUIs, there were parties and gravel pits and fairgrounds. And we had a number of deaths. The community was alarmed, and we vowed that we'd do anything we could so that that would not happen again. We had law enforcement, clergy, parents, organizations in town who helped raise funds to support an activity that was a celebration of high school students graduating from high school. And I had to negotiate with some of the seniors in the class to see if they really would like to do something fun that we would sponsor them. There were about 5 kids at that time who said that they'd like to pursue an activity where they could celebrate their graduation with their peers. And from that, the effort grew. It was really an amazing evening after graduation that night. 2/3 of the students came. They knew if they came using a substance that we'd call their parents to come get them. There were no OUIs, there were no accidents that year. Law enforcement was so appreciative, as well as parents, as you can imagine. That effort started locally, and it was a prototype for others to replicate in their communities that work for them and their people. And it was something that we didn't hold on to, we shared it, and it grew and spread. Engaging others in a process is something that really makes my engine run. I love people. I love solving problems, as Kay said. You always learn something new. You get to know and work with a lot of really wonderful people. So the key is, for me, is engaging with others in a meaningful project, or solving a problem, or overcoming an obstacle. The key is attracting people who really will want to engage and come up with solutions. This Hartman Award gave me an opportunity to do a lot of thinking about my life and career, and where else but in Maine could you graduate one in a class of 32 kids in Patton, Maine, come to the University of Maine and have opportunities presented to you. And the key is, and it's asking for advice, say yes, walk through the door. It's amazing the people you'll meet and the things you'll do and the changes that you can make if you work collaboratively with others.
Well, we kind of have a similar story. Here in Maine, I had the chance to be one of 16 in the graduating class. And who would have thought, I never would have thought that I would be sitting at this table tonight. But in terms of engagement in the work that I've been engaged with for so many years, I wouldn't have stayed in that field if it hadn't been for the rewards that I get out of it. I feel that I have gotten so much more back than I have ever been able to give. I was a high school teacher at one point, and started teaching children with disabilities and realized that the high school kids didn't appreciate me nearly as much as the kids with the disabilities did. And so I have stuck it out because of course, I love all people. I am a relationship builder. And the people I have met on my journey, people with disabilities, people who support people with disabilities, champions of people with disabilities have inspired me to do the right thing. And I've continued on that path. We have some incredible members of our community in this state and in other states who are not adequately recognized. They happen to have a disability, but people so often don't understand that they have more abilities than they do disabilities. And we need to have these people in our community. We need to continue to welcome them, accept them, and who doesn't want to be a part of making that happen? I also agree with Sue that collaboration is the name of the game. You can make change one by one, but if you want to make a huge change, you've got to collaborate with others in order to make that change. And so being a relationship builder and being a collaborator, it's a win-win. So, yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. Last question, and I know everyone is looking forward to the reception and chatting, so we'll, if your pithiest advice will be appreciated. I know we have a lot of undergraduates taking notes too. So we'd love to know what one piece of advice that you have for our folks in the room, our undergraduates, our graduates, the folks who are here honoring you tonight. All of your collective wisdom, is there one thing that you could share?
For me is just ask. What can I do for you? You will not kill you, it will do anything. It's just very simple. But just be accessible and just show up and just say, what can I do to help? And take it from there. I've got rejections, but I don't stop. I just keep coming back and ask what can I do to help. And that's the only way you can, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who do a lot than I do. But it's just very easy for me. I'm a people person, so it helps. And I know it's hard for some people, but please just ask.
Kay mentioned being a problem solver. And these were my thoughts and reflections. And one is, it requires dedication and patience. Take the time to really understand the problem. Engage others who are committed to solving that problem, and then stay the course until problems mitigated or solved. Keep in mind that social change starts locally and grows outward. So in your neighborhood, in your community, that's where you can start and identify opportunities that can help people move to a better place.
Again, it's interesting being the last. I had written down a few things. If you are engaged in a social movement, it is not a short timer, and it's going to last for a while. You're going to be on a long journey, and you have to commit yourself to that journey from the beginning and stay the course. And for me, patience has been my watchword. Just be patient, and you will be able to see change and make change every single day. You have to be at the tables, you have to be at whatever tables where there are people discussing policies that are impacting the lives of the people that you're advocating for. Just be patient and smile.
Thank you so much. Now we'd like to introduce our provost, whose title I will not read in full again. John Ball.
Thank you, everyone. What a wonderful evening, and I'll take Jessica's advice and try to be pithy. And I know I'm between you and the reception, but I do want to echo the president's earlier words. It's just so wonderful to be here in person. Last year we did this event virtually, and it was fabulous. But to be here and hear these stories, and to have the panel and hear these rich stories from obviously people that you've worked with for years and that really have such great respect for you. It's just been amazing. I better take off my glasses so I can actually read. So Sue Bell, Bonnie Jean Brooks, and Zamzam Mohammed, thank you for all you have done and continue to do to make our communities better. Your example demonstrates that even in challenging times, we all have the power to articulate what a better future looks like and to make it happen. And your advice there just really definitely exemplified that. Tyler Dubois, you are, keep up your remarkable work that you've done. And I know you will continue to make a difference. And congratulations a bit early on your graduation. And I look forward to shaking your hand across that stage. I would like to thank President Fernie Mundy, Professor Emerita Maisie Huff, and presenters Kay Rand, Marianne Saxel, and Kristen Cloutier for your contributions to tonight's celebrations. Loved those introductions. They were just fabulous. Thanks also to the Maine Renaissance for providing tonight's wonderful music. I would like to thank the Marianne Hartman Awards Committee, especially our co-chairs, Laura Cowan. Laura, are you here? I saw you earlier. Yeah, there's Laura, thank you. Director of our Women, Genders, and Sexuality program here at the University of Maine, and Jessica Miller, Associate Provost that you met here. Her office is right next to mine, and I get the pleasure to work with Jessica. I think we heard earlier how it's great to work with people that you like, and Jessica is definitely one of those people. So is Joan, which is really great. It really makes for this really tight team. And I want special thanks to Jessica's assistant, Jonathan Juwang, for all the administrative support. You've been seeing Jonathan here behind the scenes. There's Jonathan. Thanks to everyone who's joined here this evening in person or virtually, including our past Marianne Hartman Awards. Senator King is one of those, and also I believe Eric Hartman is as well. So we welcome you all to join us for the reception, but first I'm really delighted to reintroduce the Maine Renaissance for one final song. So thank you.
Super trooper, beams are gonna blind me, but I won't feel blue like I always do. 'Cause somewhere in the crowd there's
when I called you last night from Glasgow, I knew that you wishing that
in the car. Alright, suddenly it's gone. Tonight the super buttons are gonna find me shining like the super, smiling, having super, feeling like a number one. Tonight the super beams are gonna blind me, but I won't feel super like I always super. Somewhere in the crowd there's ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da. I'll be there when you arrive. The sight of you will prove to me I'm survived. And when you take me in your arms and hold me tight, I know it's gonna mean so much tonight. Like the super lights are gonna find me shining like the super, smiling, having fun, feeling like a number one. Like the super beams are gonna blind me, but I won't feel super like I always do. Somewhere in the crowd, there's super lights are gonna find me.
That concludes our formal program. Please join us for some refreshments outside. Thank you, everyone. Congratulations again.